Well, hello, everybody. I'm Dan Turbyville, and this is Powerhouse Fence Show. It's been a few weeks, but here we are. This week, we're going to start off a new series, and this series is going to be called Be Careful What You Consume. That also is the title of this episode. But we're going to talk about, in the series, we'll talk about, intentionally selecting what you listen to, what you consume, things along those lines. Uh, Really just focus on strategic consumption. There's so many things in the world now, and there's just stuff coming at us from every different direction. We really have to intentionally focus on what we want to consume, or else a bunch of crap just comes in, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. Uh, so we want to always listen, okay? I like to listen, but I don't like to always consume everything. If that makes a difference to you. So there's a little preview. And this is season 4, episode 1. Season 4. That's insane. I guess when we started, we didn't really have a plan, right? We just started and we just started doing this thing and sitting here and talking. And here I am, still going. So the show is presented by Memphis Fence Company, Simpalo, and Valgard Strategies Group. We do have some partners on the show. Thornton Fence Consulting Group. We have Fence News, EZG Manufacturing. So these are all people that have partnered with us because I believe in their product and they trust me enough to put their logos on the screen while I sit here and talk, and at some level to represent them. We have a new one. I didn't get their logo added in time. I just got it today, so things happen. But My Salesman, another product that I actually believe in. We have My Salesman, although we don't really do residential anymore. We still use it a few times a month, and just using it those few times a month, I still keep it and I still keep paying for the subscription. When we did residential, it was a mandatory piece, but we still have it today. So we will get their logo added, and we'll talk about that more in the future. So in the next few weeks, we're going to be at Fence Tech. We'll be giving away swag. You are welcome to come to our booth and try our game of putt-putt. And you might walk away with a little prize money. So stop by, say hello. It is a Simpalo booth, but we're not going to try to sell you anything unless you want to talk about Simpalo. Try to just be a place that people can stop by and say hello and hang out, ask questions, talk about whatever you want. You want to talk some fence stuff? Come find me. I'll talk fence with you. We talk about listening to stuff, listening to books here on the show. Yeah, that's confusing because that's also what we're talking about with this episode. But no, on the show, we've always talked about what we're listening to, what we're watching, stuff like that. So we did something really interesting at work. We started a book club. I don't know a better word for it other than book club. So that's what we rolled with. And we had our first book club meeting today. We've been reading From Drift to Drive by Chris Robinson. And a handful of us that are in the book club, we met up today and we talked about the stuff that we had read over the past few days and, what we got from it and what it meant to us, basically. Right. And so that was cool. Happened really organically. And that's cool. I like that. Anyway, there's an idea. If you want to do something different, I mean, you and your team can sit down and read books and then sit and talk about it. And, we're taking notes and we are marking up the books and all that. And we'll read them. And then I've always wanted to have a company library, right? And maybe that's just a shelf where we put a few books on the shelf and they're welcome to anyone who wants to read them. Maybe it grows and maybe it becomes like a full bookshelf instead of just a single shelf. And I hope that we continue this thing and we keep adding to that collection and, cycle back through the books time and time again. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you. So I do appreciate all of you that tune in and listen. It's really cool that people all over the world sit and listen to this podcast and listen to me talk. And I hope that I get to meet a lot of you at FinStech, and I hope that this adds value to you at some level, personal, professional, whatever that is. If you got anything you want me to talk about, please let me know. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to reach out. And yeah, it's always cool to talk to people who listen to the show. I periodically meet people, and it's always an interesting thing because they'll come up and start talking to me, and it's like instantly they know me. I'm like, who are you? Right. And like, I've never met them before, but later on I figure out that they've listened to the show, and it kind of, I don't know, creates some familiarity, which is also neat. So feel free to stop by our booth, I guess is what all that's saying. We are on all the major podcast platforms. If you want to listen to this in audio form instead of in video, like if you're watching right now is how you're getting this. Also, shout out to Jamie. He's on our team, and he is doing some pretty cool things with Memphis Fence and Paulo Powerhouse, all these social media accounts that we run. So if you want to look at our stuff, maybe it's, gives you some ideas of things that you can do, but he's been rocking. So we talked about this before, but we are working on building our own app, like our own CRM, ERP. One day I want to do an episode and just show you what it is and show you how it did it. But I don't know when that's going to happen, right? So we've got a new guy in our office, Ravi, and Ravi's also been knocking out some pretty cool stuff. And so he's building this whole workflow to take these podcast episodes, transcribe them, and put them into a database to use for an AI chatbot. So that will live in this CRM that we're building. So shout out to Ravi for doing that. And we're also building an AI model that is going to do labor predictions for us. And I'll give you a little bit of how we're doing it. So we're going to generate SimPaulo material list, and we're going to look at actual labor hours that it took to do jobs. And we're going to enter all of that information. And that's what this AI will use to predict labor on projects that we're bidding. So when we feed it a new SimPaulo material list, it's going to say, hey, based on the recent things you've done, we think it's going to take 74 to 68, 74 to 82 hours, whatever that is. Haven't seen it happen yet, but he has been working on it. I'm pretty excited about it. So anyway, all of that kind of goes back to an episode that I did, I guess, last year. Fence is the product, not the business. So we're really trying to embrace that, right? And we're trying to be really, really good at handling the customer experience, really, really good at handling information and data, and being extremely precise and extremely efficient. Almost combine those two words. Extremely precise and extremely efficient with the data that we have. And I think it's going to make our entire operation run smoother, which will then provide better results and a better experience for our customers. So that's what all that is. But having said all that, let's dive into this. And I want to throw out a little disclaimer here at the beginning. Okay. I want to start by saying I am a huge supporter of events, speakers, so people who stand in front of rooms and speak, and coaches. I mean, everyone that's kind of in this realm of things that we're going to talk about, I'm a really big supporter. Okay. I know what it takes to go stand in front of a room and talk, and the preparation that goes into doing that. Just sitting here and talking for an hour, like the prep time is probably 4 times of what I give you sitting here. Right. So if you're going to go speak in front of a room for 1 or 2 or 3 days, if that same 4 times applies to it, like a lot goes into it. Right. So man, same thing, putting on an event, right? The amount of energy that goes into bringing all the people together and bringing all the things together and organizing it. Like I have a lot of respect for people that do that, and I'm a huge supporter. So none of what I'm going to say is directed at anyone. None of this should be interpreted as me talking crap about anybody or any event or anything else like that. There's my disclaimer. Okay. Having said that, last week I was at the Purple Coaching and Consulting 2026 annual kickoff event. It was a great event. I really enjoyed it. The event itself, and then the thing that you really can't describe to someone unless they've been there, is what happens after the event. right? So when you go sit around a fire pit with 20 people and like y'all are just there smoking cigars, hanging out, chatting, like that's something that is different, right? And it's really cool. But yeah, it was a fantastic event. So shout out to that whole team for putting on that event and making that thing happen. It was great. And I learned some stuff while I was there. Well, I don't know if I learned this, but this was kind of solidified with me, right? Is that relationships are really a big deal, right? And it was what we do in the position that we find ourselves in can be a little bit lonely, can it? Right? So we grew up with a group of friends. We went to school together, we played sports together, we did all of those things together, and then we go through maybe you go through the partying phase, right? So you have your group of friends that you go party with. Well, as I get older and as I progress and do different things, it makes it harder to relate. And yeah, we can go out to, some kids' soccer games, right? Like we can go to our kids' soccer game, we can go to that kind of stuff, and we see the people there. But I don't, for me, it's just some sort of different connection. Um, Events like that can help with those missing connections if you find yourself in that position. Okay, because ultimately we all need friends, mentors, accountability partners, whatever that is. We need somebody we can call if we want to talk through things, right? Maybe we're struggling with something, maybe we have an idea, whatever that is. We want to talk to somebody. We need a person on the other end of the phone. And yeah, maybe, you can have conversations with AI or chat GPT, whatever you use, right? But it's just not the same as a person on the other end. It drives me crazy. I'll sit there and I'll be like, hey, talking to chat GPT, what do you think about this? Oh, you're really on the right track now. That's a fantastic idea. And I'm like, what? Like every time. So I don't know. It's just something different, right? But when you're at these events, let's talk about the information, okay? And let's talk about being careful what you consume. And I guess there's something to be said about who you associate with, right? But that's not really the point of this episode. The point of this episode is to talk about what we consume. So these events, man, they turn into such an information overload. Like you consume a lot. If you go sit in a room and listen to people talk for 1 or 2 or 3 days, and then you go sit at the fire pit or go to the bar or go to dinner or do whatever it is with these like-minded people, well, a lot of times those conversations wind up talking about fence. And so you get a ton of information and perspectives and ideas, and it can be an overload, right? People have great ideas and wonderful insight. Nothing wrong with that, but it just gets to be a lot. So I sit there and I'm one of the people that I'll take notes. And I have pages of notes that I took last week. And I love it, right? So I took all these notes, I brought them home with me, and then we can make plans to go out and change the world, right? So maybe you're at an event, you write out a to-do list. You have 374 items of things. Man, I'm just going to go do this, right? And then something happens, and we come back. We re-enter our daily routine, okay? And then we try to do it all. And you know what happens? We don't do any of it. We might do a little bit on this one and a little bit on that one, but we're not intentional. Or I guess I should say, if we're not intentional, then we probably don't wind up accomplishing much of those 374 items we wrote down on a to do list. Okay. Life gets in the way, things get busy. We get overwhelmed when we look at this giant list of stuff that we want to accomplish. And even worse, if you don't write it down, I mean, when you're sitting in the room and you have all this stuff going on, if you don't write it down, you may or may not remember it. Okay. So I think we have to be selective about what we really let sink in. And I don't mean what we hear, I mean the things that we really take to heart. We have to be selective about what that is. All right. We got to be careful about what we come back and try to implement because you can't do it all. There's no way. It doesn't matter what level we're at. I mean, we go sit in a room and we hear these other people that have done the thing and they've gone to the place and they've done all this stuff. And then we're like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do this. Well, then, and you might come back and it's just overwhelming. So here's what I'd say. And I think this applies if you're going to Fence Tech and you're going to go through some educational pathway that they have. Well, pick 1, 2, 3 things and do those. Okay. And then go back again I'm not saying go back again to Fence Tech. I'm just saying go back again to somewhere and get a few more. Right. So I learned this phrase from Chris Robinson. He says, learn a little, do a little, learn a little, do a little. Right. Not learn a lot and then do a lot. Just take it one step at a time. Just learn a little bit, do a little bit, and you're going to get there eventually. So there's a lot of talk about how people try to learn it all before they ever take the first step, right? Getting ready to get ready, all of this kind of stuff. But you just got to start moving and you got to learn a little and do a little. And don't try to learn it all and do it all. That's the whole point of that segment right there. I could have just said that. Just take it easy. So, like I said, we got to be careful about what we take to heart. So just because there's someone standing in the front of the room and they say something doesn't mean that it's gold. Okay? It doesn't mean that it should change your life. So I don't have any people in mind. I'm sure there's people that have stood in front of a room that didn't have much business being in the front of the room. That's a thing, but that's not what I mean. Okay? I will say I've stood in front of a room. I hardly know everything, right? I am forever a student. I always want to learn. I always want to push and I always want to get better. So if you heard me standing in front of a room a year ago, might be different than what I would say today because I'm always trying to learn and always trying to improve. So here's what I really mean by when I say the person standing in the front of the room, when they say something, it doesn't mean that it should be gold to you. Okay. I don't know how to say that in a different way, but it doesn't mean that everything they say should change your life. Some of the things, probably. Okay. But not everything. And the reason is there's so many different situations in the world. So I'm going to try an analogy right now. Let's say, you're walking down the sidewalk and there's someone laying on the ground right there and they're obviously hurt. There's something going on with them, right? Do you just automatically jump in and start doing CPR? Or do you like assess the situation and maybe try to figure out what's wrong before you just assume that you need to do CPR? Right? Some people, yeah, if you pull up and do CPR, that's what they need, but it's not for everyone. And I think that same thing applies, right? The situation that the people in the front of the room are in is going to be different than your situation. So there's fundamentals that I think are universal, but just keep that in mind, okay? So I think that same concept, it applies to everything that we consume, whether we're listening to a podcast, reading a book, whatever it is that we're doing. So I told you, we've been listening to From Drift to Drive, and the situation that he was in when he's writing that book is different than the situation that a lot of us are in when we're reading the book. And so we can't take it too literal and be like, oh, well, I don't have a house and 3 kids. Right. Well, yeah. Okay. But get the fundamental concept of it and see how that fits into your life. There you go. So maybe we just need a Band-Aid, right? Not to say that our problems are less than the person that needs CPR, but maybe we just don't need that same thing because we're in a different spot. And they might have a different team than what we have. Their leadership style may be different than ours. Okay. So listen to the people, but don't think that everything that I say or other people say that you might listen to is the ultimate solution, right? Everything is different. Take what people say, think about it. Does it make sense for your world? Can you apply it to your life? Is it a solution to something that needs to be solved? Is it a solution to something that needs to be solved? All right, so I want to throw out a word right now. And this word is filter. You've heard filter before. I know you have. So a filter is one of the definitions, according to Merriam-Webster, is a porous article or mass as of paper or sand through which a gas or liquid passes to separate out matter in suspension. Okay, did you catch that? to separate out matter in suspension. I'm going to take a drink while that sinks in. So, in other words, it separates out the junk from the good stuff. Okay. It separates out the junk that shouldn't be there. And sometimes we have to have a filter, and we have to filter what we allow in and what we allow to really burrow in and really sink in there, because not everything belongs sunk in or burrowed. Okay. Think about a fuel filter, right? What does it do? Well, it separates the junk from the fuel that's going to your engine. So let's think about ourselves, our brains as an engine, and we consume the fuel. So we got to filter out the junk, right? That's it. We need clean fuel. We don't need a bunch of junk coming in with it. We need clean fuel. So again, listen, but have a filter in place and be selective about what you consume. So I like to take parts of what everyone says, and I like to listen to everything that I can. All right. And it's like completely random. That's fine. I like to take parts from what they say. I like to think about what they say. And then I decide, does this apply to me? Is there a way that this connects to me? Right. And every once in a while you hear something, you go, man, that's a really good idea. I was listening to the contractor fight one time, and they were talking about their home remodel business, or their, um, water feature business, or whatever it is, right? Not fence, but still a service type industry that has customers. Okay. So there is that connection there. And I heard something on their show, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, holy crap, I'm stupid. Why did I not think about that before? Okay. And so that's the stuff that I'm looking for. And I'm not taking everything that they say and saying, oh, yeah, that applies to me. Right. So sometimes they talk about like margins and, things like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe for you in your location, in your industry, but that's going to be different for everybody. So I like to take a little bit from multiple people, and then I make my own decisions. And I might combine things together that I hear from different people. Y'all know I listen to a lot of stories about people from the past. Okay. I've probably talked about Henry Ford, I don't know, 100 times on this show. And so, I've listened to some stuff about Henry Ford. I listen to things about other people, and some people that are still alive, some people that are not alive. And I try to see, does that concept, does that philosophy, does that idea, whatever it is, apply to our business? Because I understand that just because it worked for them doesn't mean it works for me. And that applies across the board for me. Okay. Just because it worked for somebody else doesn't always mean it works for us. So here's the question for you. Are you filtering what you consume? So let's go through some questions here. So when we get home tonight, what are we going to watch? When we're driving to from work, job sites, meetings, whatever it is, what are we listening to? When we sit down and we open a book, what are we reading? Okay. Are we just watching endless hours of nonsense? Are we watching? I'm going to replace that word. Are we consuming endless hours of nonsense? Are we consuming something that just distracts us? Right? Because along with the filter comes focus. Okay. So we need to focus on the things that matter. And we do that by filtering out the things that don't matter. So are we consuming stuff that is going to help us get to our ultimate goal in the place that we want to go? Right? Because, right, that's what we want, right? We want to get to the place we want. And that's why we set a goal, is to try to get there. And it would only make sense that if it's a real goal and we take it really seriously, that we're going to consume things that are going to help us take steps to get there, or that we believe will anyway. So while I'm on this subject, some of you have probably heard this story before, and that's okay. But if you don't know, I've been around the fence business my entire life. I think I came here after leaving the hospital. They had to come up here and bid some jobs, and so I think I came straight here before I even went home. But there was a time in my life where I thought, man, I don't need to listen to anybody. What do they know? Right? I grew up here. We've been around forever. I know what I'm talking about. And then somewhere along the way, I accidentally listened to someone, and now I listen to everything I can. And I am selective. When I say I listen to everything I can, I don't mean I just like, randomly pick a channel and listen. I mean that I listen to the things I listen to as often as I can. Okay. So I try to consume as much as I can, but I'm still selective about what I'm consuming. All right. So sometimes you might even see me somewhere and I might just be sitting there. Right. And I might just look lost. I had this happen to me the other day and I was like, I bet I just look like I'm lost. Well, really, what I'm doing is I'm just sitting and listening and watching and consuming the world around me. I'm just taking it all in. Right. And I'm just watching what other people do and listening to what they talk about and what they say. So I think a thing that some of us struggle with is we don't always have to talk. Sometimes we can just listen. So this week's history lesson, surprisingly enough, is not about Henry Ford. I'm going to talk about World War II for a minute. And so in World War II, the Allied forces had a bunch of code breakers, right? And that was very instrumental in the outcome of World War II. And so they received millions, or they didn't receive, they intercepted millions of transmissions throughout the course of the war. They got radio chatter, they got coded messages, they got some routine logistics plan. I'm sure they heard some guy was going to the toilet. Like they heard everything. They got a bunch of false signals that were not actually anything. Some of them were deliberate deceptions. Okay. You think we ever hear anything that's a deliberate deception that's trying to distract us from our ultimate goal? 100%. I listened to Sean Ryan had a guy on his show and they were talking about psyops, right? And the psychology behind the human mind and how it's applied to social media and the advertising that happens on social media and all of this. And I mean, it's crazy. But there was plenty of noise or even information available to these code breakers during World War II, but so much of it was meaningless information and it was misleading information, or a lot of it was even outdated, right? So we hear all of those same things today. We have, I mean, I don't even know how to like quantify how much information is available to us today. And I don't mean like good, useful information. I just mean in general. Okay. And so much of it is meaningless or misleading or even outdated, right? So for the code breakers, some stuff was super accurate information, but it was completely irrelevant. So it was like giving CPR to somebody that needed a band-aid, right? It it was a real thing, but it didn't mean anything to them. If they sat there and tried to consume all of that stuff, they would have just been paralyzed and they would have never gotten anything done. So there were breakthroughs with cracking codes, deciphering encrypted messages, things like that. There were devices that were made to do it. Like there were massive breakthroughs from a technological perspective and from other perspectives during World War II. That's good, right? That's amazing. But the thing about it is, how many of those messages that they decrypted or decoded or cracked the codes were still just radio chatter and logistics plans and false signals, deliberate deceptions, all of these things, right? Or outdated, right? I don't know how long it took them to, break the code on a message, but I imagine a lot of the stuff that they worked really hard on by the time they read it didn't matter anymore. So there was a lot of useful stuff. So I think the real breakthrough that they had came from learning what to ignore. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. Learning what to ignore. Okay, so the filter blocked out the junk. So they had to they learned to filter out the bad content and they learned to find the information that was useful for them. That's what they did. And that's what we have to do. We have to block out the junk. We got to focus on the stuff that's meaningful to us. I talked about events. I talked about people standing in the front of the room. It's not always that. It's when you pull out your phone, right? Every time you pull out your phone and you go anywhere, I mean, it doesn't matter. You're checking your text messages. I just got some text message 2 minutes ago that's some garbage, right? I have a Facebook notification and an email notification, and odds are they're probably garbage too. So we just get inundated with junk, right? And so now I think our filter has a really big job. That's what I think makes it unique today is that there's so much, just so much stuff out there, so many distractions hitting us all the time. And we got to learn to filter it and get what we need. Okay. And that's the challenge of it, right? Is getting what we actually need. And I guess maybe even the real challenge of that is realizing that it is the information that we actually need when we get it. Ah, that's interesting. So, like I told you, this is the first part of a series. So, we're going to get deeper into some of this stuff. I just kind of wanted to do a little intro and, uh, you know, test the waters. Not really test the waters. I'm not testing anything. This is what we're doing. So, wanted to just do a little intro piece and kind of get the wheels turning, get people thinking about filtering and selecting the right information and being intentional about it. And from there, we'll see where it goes. So, I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for being here. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, remember to filter what you consume.